All right, welcome back to the Discovering Eden podcast. My name is Brandon.
And I'm Jonathan.
And today we are going to take a look at the Chronicles of Narnia, specifically The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and anything else we can fit into this time. Yeah, it's something that I think both of us have at least read or watched.
It is my favorite book series.
Okay. It is not mine, but my favorite book series comes next. So, I mean, both the authors.
Captain Underpants?
Oh, dang it. Stole it. No, it was Diary of a Wimpy Kid, actually.
Yes. That one spoke to me in middle school.
Okay. Anyway, what we're actually talking about is Lord of the Rings, for those who aren't aware.
What?
And what's funny is the Chronicles of Narnia, Lord of the Rings, very well known, like fantasy element, fictional stories,
Yeah.
and series rather. And both were actually friends and good close friends at that.
Oh, yeah.
In real life. So take that. Partially why I even got into writing is because I love the Lord of the Rings and the story building and everything like that. And I'm sure it goes the same for you, Jonathan. Yeah,
absolutely. Except it's the opposite. I love Lord of the Rings too.
Yeah.
But for me, it would be kind of the flip side. I
Yeah,
like the Narnia
Chronicle
side
Narnia,
of it.
yeah.
So
both are good. They're both really good.
Excellent. Obviously, they're considered the classics of fantasy for a reason.
Yeah. Which is why we nerd out about it and why we like talking about it. So, woo! And then I guess don't forget the bumper. Oh, we gotta pray first, man.
I thought we did the prayer after the bumper.
Oh, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I don't
Do
know.
the bumper.
I just do. I just do these things, you know. But I mean, whatever. We'll do what you say. Let's get it.
All right. So before we kind of dive into the meat of the discussion today, we're gonna pray as we do each week.
Yep.
So we'll get right into it. Dear Lord, we just thank you for this time to gather each week and discuss the things that we nerd out about, but we also know that a lot of other people nerd out about, and kind of finding the ways that you reveal yourself through those media outlets. God, we just pray that whatever is from us and not from you, it falls to the ground and is forgotten. We pray for a fruitful discussion, and Lord, we just again thank you for this time. Amen.
Amen. Why don't you lead us off, Jonathan?
Yeah, so Chronicles of Narnia, as we kind of discussed, is going to be the main focus of today. It's one of my favorite fantasy novels. It was written by C.S. Lewis, the man, the myth, the legend.
Good old Clive.
Good old Clive Staples.
Not the founder of Staples.
Well, but there goes all my research.
But he could have been, you know. He had that was easy.
In an alternate universe. But C.S. Lewis, obviously a great writer, but also one of, I think, the most important theologians of our time.
Or at least that were influential to us.
Oh, for sure.
Because there's definitely a lot of other theologians that technically are a lot more, you know, influential for other reasons. But for kids growing up, I would say this is probably one of the more formative aspects of formation.
Yeah. I mean, I
said the same thing twice. But whatever.
That's okay. That's okay.
You know what? We're writers, not talkers. Yeah, we're doing a podcast, so. Whoop-de-doo.
Anyway, C.S. Lewis, besides Narnia, also behind some other great works, Mere Christianity, the Space Trilogy,
Space Trilogy,
which is basically sci-fi Narnia.
Think of that. Lion in a spacesuit.
Well, it's not quite like that, but I appreciate the...
Okay, my bad. Minotaur.
There you go.
In a spacesuit.
I only read the first one of the Space Trilogy.
Holding and wielding a macaroni noodle.
You sure it's not Turkish Delight?
Oh.
In space? All right.
My bad. Oh, you got tea and crumpets, too. Don't forget about that.
Gold save the queen, as they say. Also wrote Screwtape Letters, another one of my favorites. Yeah. Again, just a really bright theological guy. And he was good friends with, as you said earlier, J.R.R. Tolkien.
And just a side note for Screwtape Letters, I could not think of a better, like almost like one-for-one comparison. So one of the characters or demons in the Screwtape Letters is Wormwood.
Wormwood, yeah.
Which is, I think, eerily similar to one of the people that kind of smooth talks King Theoden in The Lord of the Rings, Grima Wormtongue.
When was that?
Now, I guess this is something I might have brought up later. I don't know how closely related those dates are for when both of them were written, but it would be interesting because they talked back and forth.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the most interesting things about their friendship is they did have a writing club known as the Inklings, where they did share story ideas back and forth.
So part of that could have been born of that. I don't know, but that's just something that literally pinged into my head now.
Yeah, I was gonna ask the same thing if you knew the dates between those.
No, it's just my own brain vomit.
That's disgusting.
Hey, you know what? Tastes all the same.
Cut the feed.
No. You know what? I tried something new today, Put some deep fried perch roe. Did that. Put some cinnamon sugar on it. Online, it said it tasted like donuts. Like, the Chinese donuts with a bunch of sugar, whatever.
You get at like a buffet or something.
Tried it. They don't really. But they also don't really taste of anything. You do taste the cinnamon sugar, which if my dad put a lot more cinnamon sugar, I would say it actually is pretty accurate. Because the consistency is kind of like, it's kind of like that donut or like a tater tot.
A donut and a tater tot, those are two, I mean...
They're similar. Anyway, I digress.
What tater tots are you eating that taste like donuts?
Almost brought it in for him to try it. It would have been funny. I probably should have done it in hindsight.
Hindsight's
and
2020.
Then not tell him what it was. I
get out of fish eggs.
Hey, you know what?
I'm not a picky either, though, so I'd try anything once.
I also wouldn't have told you what it was. So you would have eaten it. You're like, it's okay.
It tastes like a donut that you get at a Chinese buffet.
It could have tasted better. Good valiant effort, buddy.
You said one of them earlier was very fishy.
I want to say that was just like an error. I don't quite, because literally all the other ones we had were like perfectly fine.
Error in the Matrix, right?
Yeah.
Anyways,
they ain't no Turkish delight. I can tell you that. Is it delightful? I don't know. Anyway, back to the. Gotta love our banter and Randall. Yes, exactly. Good old Randall. Oh, man.
Yikes.
Anyway, to get back to the point.
Yeah, the point.
Several points.
Yep. Clive Staples Lewis.
Yep.
Not the founder of Staples.
2 points. Staples. Actually, it's more than 2 points.
We're not going to finish this episode in time.
You know what? There's a will, there's a way.
That's right. We got this. Easy money.
It's always next week. Anyway, so Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe. Some would say, and I think a lot of people would say, is very allegorical to a Christian narrative, especially from the perspective of Christ and the crucifixion and resurrection of Christ. That being in Aslan, the lion. Now, C.S. Lewis also was a little hesitant to say it was allegory.
Wasn't a fan of that term, at least in regards to his literature.
Especially considering, like, the pagan influences as well. So, like, for example, you have, like, minotaurs, centaurs, fawns, all the fantastical creatures.
Interestingly, too, is, I mean, kind of building off of that, in Prince Caspian, there is reference to, like, a river god, you know, lowercase g sort of thing. Again, kind of that pagan influence there. Which is interesting.
I mean, you even have Father Christmas.
Yeah.
Show up. So, if that doesn't tell you something about some of that.
Santa lives in Narnia.
Yep.
That's why he never got my letters as a kid.
He also goes to... Oh, yeah, that's a fair point.
I didn't have the wardrobe.
Maybe that was his way to get out of, being seen.
That's a good point.
The chimney was the wardrobe. The whole time.
The chimney is the wardrobe we made along the way. That made no sense.
No, because he uses it's a portal, He just goes through the portal.
Oh, isekai.
Isekai. Yeah, isekai.
I did never get hit by that bus. Or that car. I don't remember what we talked about.
He has a sleigh. Grandma got ran over by a reindeer.
Christmas is coming. I could still get hit by a sleigh.
Santa got ran over by Rudolph and his buddies.
Like some sort of mafia job? You put gold in our stockings, we're gonna break your kneecaps with this sleigh here.
Narnia.
So that's basically Narnia. Good gracious, we are off topic.
Hey, good old fun. Oh man, we've gone way the heck off
lock
script.
in. We got this, easy peasy.
Like we even have a script, to be honest. I mean, we do, but
don't worry about the phones.
We have bullet points. I do little bits of research here and there.
So I think before we dive super deep into Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, because I think that's going to be the main focus of our discussion, I do want to kind of cover the other books just as a brief kind of overview.
His own word vomit.
Yes. So, obviously, as we said, allegorical in a sense. And when I was doing research, Wikipedia had a very interesting quote. And it was from one of C.S. Lewis's last letters that he wrote before his death. And he was kind of describing, and I'm paraphrasing this, obviously, I don't have the article up. But as you break it down, some of those allegories are much more blatant than others. And I think Magician's Nephew, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Last Battle, very much more in your face. I mean, Magician's Nephew, you've got the creation story of Narnia. And if I'm remembering it correctly, Aslan either breathes life or he roars life into Narnia. I can't remember which it is, or if it's even one of those. It's something like that, though. And it's also the story of how evil, or the White Witch, Jadis, enters Narnia. And it tells the story of the fall with Diggory and Polly, who, when they venture into the wood between worlds, they enter into the world of Charn, which is the White Witch's homeworld. And they ring a bell, which basically awakens her and, sends her on her rampage. So you've got the creation story, the fall of man, all of that in Magician's Nephew. Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, as Brandon kind of talked about already, is the crucifixion resurrection story. We'll dive deeper into that in a minute. And then you've got Prince Caspian, which is, at least according to C.S. Lewis's letter, the restoration of true religion after corruption. You see that with Prince Caspian essentially retaking the Narnian throne from the Telmarinians at the end of the book, even though he is a Telmarinian himself, which is an interesting point, but I digress. Voyage of the Dawn Treader is it's a very interesting installment in the series because there's not really a main antagonist to the story. It's much more the story of their journey.
It's the journey.
It's the journey. And I think that fits because C.S. Lewis saw it as an example of the spiritual life of a believer, specifically within the character of Reepicheep, the mouse.
Makes me think of a Cheep Cheep.
Is that Pokemon?
No, it's Mario.
Oh,
It's the
little
little
fish.
fish. It's the fish.
Yeah.
Every time I see Reaper Cheap, and I'm like, it's Cheap
It's cheap. Jump on that guy.
Good old Cheap. Give him some fish food.
The Horse and His Boy, which is my personal least favorite in the series. I think it's kind of boring, but that's just me.
But this is apologetic. It's
Uh,
only his biggest theological.
Yeah, it's fine. It is essentially the story of the calling and conversion of a non-believer. And then you've got the Silver Chair, which is the continual battle between good and evil, very basic. I see it kind of as a spiritual warfare thing, especially with the underground area that they go to is kind of this allegorical view of hell.
So it could almost be like persecution or something like that.
Something like that. And then you've got the signs that Aslan gives the kids to follow on their journey. So you've got kind of following, God's calling and stuff. It's all in Silver Chair for that. And then you've got the last battle, which I wrote down as the Last Judgment, which isn't the title. I don't know why that got there.
That's
typos.
Not mine.
Which is the coming of the Antichrist, also known as Shift the Ape, and his deception of the people of Narnia, the end of the world, and then Aslan's judgment and the coming of a new Narnia or paradise.
Yeah.
So that's a very, very brief look at the series. If you want to see more, feel free to tell us. We can talk about the other books too, but
the next one we would be going on to next would be The Last Battle.
Yeah, it's definitely, again, the allegory is more blatant there, but I also think it has a lot of the deeper themes.
Yeah, there's a lot of good nuggets to unpack in all of these books. Obviously, I have a feeling we're also going to run out of time here, so we may have a part 1 and part 2 of Lion, the Witch, and Wardrobe, unless we can finish in time. But we'll see. We got about half an hour.
We got this. We got this. Come on, Rocky Balboa style. We'll do. That didn't make any sense.
Yeah. Ta-da-da. What are we doing? We're punching the book.
This is how I read.
It's called
The Way of the Fist.
Assimilation.
Yeah.
This is how you assimilate. I will gain knowledge. How's that doing for you, buddy? I couldn't have been even dumber than I tried. How are you reading it? What's the first word? I don't know. It's the Chronicles of Narnia.
Spell this word. Spell I. Q. Dang it. All right.
That's how high his IQ is.
Q. All right. Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Before we go, I say we will before we lose the script, but we've lost the script like 4 times.
That's fine. It's fine. Minor details.
Minor details. So Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It was the first book written, but chronologically, it's the second book in the series.
Yep. When I started reading, I started with Lion, the Witch. I went from books written.
Yeah.
So I started with Lion, the Witch, and Wardrobe. And
it's interesting because I had the big volume with all of the books combined into one, and they're listed in chronological order in that. And I still also started with Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and then I went back to Magician's Nephew and then read the rest in chronological order.
I actually never got to read Magician's Nephew because I read the other ones and
you'll never believe what it's about.
Didn't actually read it because I didn't get to it because it was, I think, the last one written, or
I think it was the second to last.
Because I also haven't read The Last Battle, but I know enough about
favorite one.
We'll get there. And I will say, a lot of what sparked a lot of my remembrance of it was the movie that came out like 2005.
Yeah, that's wild.
Which is crazy. I remember watching that in theaters.
That movie is still a technological marvel to me. I think it still looks really good.
We still have some of the action figures, actually.
I used to have those as a kid. I don't anymore, though.
I don't remember where they're at. But I know we used to have them.
Do you have some stats on the movie? Because I know you, before we started, you were talking about it was a moneymaker for Disney.
If I can remember, I don't have the exact numbers down, but I know I glanced at them. I think it was like at 750,000 in revenue.
Or million
dollars. No, not. I don't think it's million. Was it million?
I'm gonna Google it real quick.
I just saw 750.
Lion.
Whether it's a million or not.
Yikes! I can't spell today. Liking the witches in the wardrobe.
Yeah, you gotta like the witches.
Let's see. You can keep talking. I'm gonna figure this out.
All right. Well, and then the other one I saw was Prince Caspian in 2008.
So it grossed $745 million worldwide against a $180 million budget. So it was the third highest grossing film of 2005.
Yeah,
which is impressive.
And then Prince Caspian took a nosedive.
And Voyage of the Dawn Treader took an even deeper nosedive.
Yeah, because I think 450 million or something was Prince Caspian.
Yeah. Well, and as a fan of the books, the first two movies did a good job, I think. Voyage of the Dawn Treader, though, was a disaster of a film. At least as an adaptation of a book. But
yeah,
that's neither here nor there. That's not our focus today.
And obviously going back to Tolkien and Lewis, they're really close friends. Actually, Tolkien helped him actually come to faith.
Yeah, well, C.S. Lewis, I mean, he was an atheist for quite a long time, a good chunk of his life.
So it was like after his 20s when he actually came to faith.
And I can't verify this, but I remember reading it somewhere, and I don't remember if it was a long time ago when I was doing a book project, and I think it was on Screwtape Letters for high school.
Okay.
So I don't remember the source, but I do remember reading somewhere that Tolkien was not happy that C.S. Lewis became a Protestant instead of a Catholic. Which I could see. Again, I don't remember the
spoiler
source
warning, Tolkien's Catholic.
Didn't ruin their friendship.
No.
But I think that is a really important part to their story.
And I thought it was funny or not really fun. Well, it's an interesting tidbit that C.S. Lewis is writing, and he was writing since he was 6.
Yeah.
With a different, because he wanted to be a poet. And his poetry, it was there. He's not known for his poetry, let me say. His writing really started taking off when he met Tolkien. And when he started writing some of these things. So he has the Chronicles of Narnia, obviously. Screwtape Letters did very, very well. Mere Christianity was his radio talk show snippets of Christian apologetics.
Well, and then you've got other apologetic novels too. The Great Divorce
and other things. I think he started with the Space Trilogy.
Yeah.
That's what really got him going off. And it's kind of funny considering Star Wars would eventually become really popular. Not too far after that.
Well, because Space Trilogy is one of his, and I guess I don't know, but it feels like one of his lesser known works.
Even though it's one of his first that really got him traction. Yeah. And I'll say, I have the books. I've never actually read the Space Trilogy.
It's Space Narnia.
Yeah. But I'm not a sci-fi person, per se. I'm more the fantasy. So I was more interested in Chronicles of Narnia, Lord of the Rings, those kind of things.
A totally valid statement.
Anyways. So, obviously, with The Lion, the Witch, and Wardrobe. So, the wardrobe itself is kind of a representation of the door into our spiritual lives. Yeah. And whether we have it open, because you can open it regardless. It's a physical thing. Now, whether you find Narnia or you find the back of the wardrobe is entirely different.
You know what's interesting too, and this is, again, I know we're not talking about the other books, but mentioning the wardrobe, it brings to mind The Magician's Nephew again. Because one of the main motivations for Diggory as a character in Magician's Nephew is to heal his ailing mother from her illness. And so he gets this apple from a garden. It was gifted to him at the end of the book after he resisted the temptation of the witch to steal it. And then they plant the seeds in his garden, and the tree that eventually grows is made into the wardrobe that allows passageway into Narnia, which I think is just an interesting little tidbit.
Yeah, I haven't read the book, so that I see a lot of definitely there's a lot of Christian
very interesting
themes and everything with it, especially with like the tree of good and evil, the apple from it, something that was a quote unquote sin because it was, or they took whatever. Oh, I don't know what the apple was from exactly. Whether that was a good tree, bad tree, I don't know.
Well, again, I mean, it was gifted to him after resisting temptation,
Okay, well,
it's
in that general line, but it's not,
obviously
it's not a one for one.
No, exactly.
Anyway, that's something I just thought of.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was an interesting tidbit that I thought might as well throw out there, see what happens.
So going into it, Chronicles of Narnia series was written for C.S. Lewis's godchild, Lucy, which is the namesake of Lucy in the stories. Which I thought was really sweet.
It is.
And it says that in all the books too, like for Lucy and.
When there's, at least in the book that I have too, you've got a letter in there to Lucy where it's basically his dedication to her.
Yeah.
But it's just a very cute letter. Again, it's completely side point, not super important to the grand scheme of the conversation, but.
So, something that I thought of, given like the dates and when things were written. So, when C.S. Lewis published like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, it was 1950. World War II ended in 1945.
Yeah.
So there is obviously a lot of relation to World War II.
Yeah.
And
still reeling from the after effects of it, for sure.
And I should have wrote this down, but I did some digging. I think he also served.
I can verify that.
I think it was in World War I, where he actually served in the military for the British.
Yeah, he did fight in World War I.
Yeah.
He was in the trench warfare in France.
Yeah. So I think like some of that has some, like it adds to some of what is written.
Yeah.
And especially like the battles and everything, like the spiritual warfare, like all these kind of metaphors, and he would call them metaphors, probably not allegory, but
we're gonna call them allegories.
We'll call them allegory for simplicity's sake. But I just thought that was an interesting tidbit, especially with all that he's gone through, and basically his passing out of knowledge to Lucy. In a way that is, I want to say, accessible to kids, like just to pick up and read, even without really realizing it has like some faith background, even for people that, wouldn't even call themselves Christians. But
even as a kid, for myself, my parents used Narnia, at least Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, to teach us, a very important story from the Bible. Because it was a very accessible, easy to understand way for kids,
and it's
cool,
and it's got the fantasy element, which me as a kid would have loved.
Yeah,
I still love.
Yeah,
so there's that, and it's just interesting because now I think part of it is because all the children are from Britain in the stories. And he himself is from Britain. And they're, again, fleeing from the attack on London.
Yeah. Which is why they go to live with the...
Which is why they go to the place with the wardrobe, the professor. And just seeing the influence of a lot of that. I have other things written down here as well. I'll probably pass on it for now because in the grand scheme of things, there's more things to talk about.
For sure.
This is more of the backstory and everything like that.
Still very cool to even consider and look up and dive
Which
into.
Maybe we'll go over those at a different time. They're just it's just little thoughts in my brain that kind of happened as I was kind of looking things up or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, kind of looking into the story itself and different symbolism that I picked up on.
Yeah.
Now, whether it's coincidence or not, I don't know. But it's something I picked up on upon like rereading or recalling in my mind of some of these things, especially as I've gotten older and kind of learned a little bit more about history and kind of the things that happened. So one example of this is the witch tempting Edmund away with sweets, namely Turkish delight.
Yeah.
And it's within the Turkish delight that my little inkling.
See, and this is something that when you told me, I didn't. It had flown past me.
Yeah. So this is an inkling. Ha ha ha. The group.
Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
That kind of popped into my mind when I recalled this. Because I knew it was something I wanted to bring up, the temptation aspect.
Yeah.
But it's the certain...
It's the type of candy
it's the type of sweet they used.
Yeah.
That caught my attention. Because Turkish delight is not a British thing. It's not. It's, well, Turkish. Or at least Middle Eastern. Which I don't want to say it's coincidence. I think it's intentional. But I have nothing to base this off of. So obviously it's my own opinion on the matter.
Yeah.
But I think there's something to be said. Now, for the reasoning behind it might not exactly be accurate, but these are just some of my thoughts. So, temptation is one thing, as it takes the shape of things we like, or things we yearn for. And obviously, for what war did to, like, London, Britain, I mean, even for the U.S., we went to the Great Depression. So, food scarce, everything scarce. Some of these things you crave.
And again, I mean, it's
obviously this was happened, and it's sweets, and they're kids. I mean, sweet tooth speaks for itself. But something that I related almost to the Christian aspect, and this kind of also plays into like World War II with the Ottoman Empire, is related to Turkey. Specifically Constantinople / Istanbul, for those who don't know. And obviously, Constantinople, Constantine is the one who named it, Emperor Constantine of the Roman Empire, basically made Christianity kind of known throughout it. So Constantinople was basically the hub of Eastern Orthodox, or Eastern Orthodoxy in Christianity, as opposed to like the Western Roman Catholic. So obviously there's a great schism, which we're not going to get into that. That's
whole nother topic.
That's church history. That's for a later time. But something that's interesting is Constantinople was one of the most important and wealthy cities in Europe. So I don't want to say like greed kind of took them over, but a temptation, if you will. And then was overtaken by the Ottoman Empire, and then turned more Islamic. So, which is now in modern day Turkey. It's called Istanbul now. There's a song, Istanbul, not Constantinople. Whatever. May have heard it in school or not. Whatever.
I remember hearing it in school.
It's catchy.
Yeah.
It's stupid, but it's catchy. So I thought of the skirmishes from the greed of Christian crusaders. That kind of... I mean, it's the dark history of Christianity. Mars the dark past, which is why Constantinople kind of fell in one way or another. Basically there was back and forth of Christianity, Islam, back and forth. Not like being in a Christian apologetics way, but as in we take you out because our way is right, and then vice versa.
Yeah,
that kind of thing. It doesn't look good.
No.
And it's again that greed, that temptation. It's the temptation aspect of it ultimately, but like the fact that it's Turkish delight. It just caught my attention.
Well, yeah, especially considering the historical,
and it has historical significance, and like kind of Edmund taking the bait, if you will,
for sure.
And obviously, it could be coincidental, but it could be like some nugget. Maybe he chose it because he liked it. I don't know.
Well, and kind of leading off of that, Edmund's the one who takes it. So let's kind of dive. I think that's a good branching off point. Let's talk about Edmund, because I think he's one of the more interesting characters. In the story, because in the beginning he's the traitor.
Judas.
He is the Judas character. He takes the bait, like you said, and he's the one who. He's not the one who kickstarts the events of the story, because I would argue that's Lucy finding Narnia. But he's the one who kickstarts the conflict.
Yeah. I also wrote something about that too. Like, why does Edmund take and accept sweets from a passing stranger?
Yeah, aren't we told not to do that?
In the middle of like a winter, like. Was he not told common sense?
She's magic. She's got magic powers.
Does this stranger danger alarm go off in his head?
It was a different time.
So basically, the sleigh was the white van or whatever, and it's like, come on in, I got sweets.
That is a very interesting.
It means doesn't like anything, but it's just like, why on earth would you do that? Were you not told common sense, man?
Yeah.
But did you really want sweets that bad?
Yeah.
Did the professor say no sweets? No sweets for you.
It's like the episode of Seinfeld, no soup for you.
No soup for you, except it's sweet.
It's candy, yeah.
No candy for you. Met Willy Wonka. The rest is history.
That's right.
Anyway, we're getting way off topic. There's no way we're finishing.
Believe, Brandon. Believe.
Another interesting tidbit is a lot of times Christ is portrayed as a lamb. In scripture and in other places, but in the book, Aslan, who is Christ, or at least is the person of Christ that's referencing, and allegory, metaphor, whatever you want to call it.
Also the only character to appear in all 7 books.
Yep, Aslan, it appears in all 7 books, which again speaks to him being Christ.
Very important.
Very important. And Aslan is a lion. Another name for Jesus is the Lion of Judah.
Yeah.
From the tribe of Judah. So, and the lion is more of, I want to say takes more of the thing of, because when I think lion, I think attack, or ferocity, or authority. More toward royal and authority.
That's kind of where my mind goes.
Because king of the jungle, kind of things like
almost
that.
Almost a sovereign sort of vibe is what
It has that aspect, and I think that's what the Lion of Judah is referencing. But I always think of also because Jesus will come back and show his authority in more of like a power.
Well, yeah, I think even though with because you mentioned lion, ferocious. I mean, Aslan as a character does not show mercy to the evil, to those who show no repentance either, which is, he is quite literally ferocious to the evildoers.
He doesn't. He doesn't lay.
Woo!
He doesn't lay down.
Yeah.
The only time he does lay down is for sacrificing himself to save Edmund from the witch, in which he comes back.
Yes. Well, and Edmund's another is kind of. Edmund repents too, which is interesting.
It's that forgiveness of sins aspect
of the story
without specifying that that's what it is.
Yeah, the whole bargain with the witch.
Yep.
And then you've got the death at the stone table,
Yep.
Where they cut his mane and before they kill him. Very similar to the again, not an exact 1-to-1, but it's meant in my mind to be very similar to the torment and mockery that Jesus faced on the cross before his death.
Yeah. And in each of the characters, I think symbolize something. So, like, for example, Lucy would be like faith.
Yeah, kind of that faith like a child, right?
Like faith like a child. I mean, I have other things written down here for like faith like a child. Edmund is the skeptic, the doubter.
Doubting Thomas.
Or Judas, and the fact of...
I think he fits more the Judas archetype, but
he comes back as opposed to Judas. Yeah. Rest in peace.
Peter and Susan are the ones that I feel like are a little trickier to nail down.
Susan has definitely something, especially later on.
Yes, in Last Battle.
Battle. It's... I don't want to say like Susan's non-committal, but
no, because I feel like in the beginning she definitely is.
She definitely is, but she loses interest.
Yeah, and well, the way C.S. Lewis puts it in The Last Battle, it definitely garnered controversy among readers, because it was along the lines of, oh, Susan's more interested in lipstick and these kind of material things, is how he phrases it, which again, it garnered controversy. But I think the point he was trying to make is she, instead of devoting herself to Narnia or from a Christian perspective, your faith, you're devoting yourself to worldly matters and things, which can cause your heart to harden.
Or like, because especially for the wardrobe, a lot of it's driven by curiosity, imagination, for all these kind of things to be open to you.
Yeah. And
basically Susan closes that door.
Yeah.
And say, oh, it's not child's play anymore. I'm not here to play make believe. And to be honest, that's really, it hits home for people that I know a lot of people that turn away from the faith.
Oh, for sure.
That were once
really devoted,
and then whether it's the church treated them wrong or different aspects, or they see things happen in their lives that kind of turn them
It could be a
away.
number of different things.
It could be a different number, where it no longer is important to them as much anymore. And it's like, but I don't see you. Like, I don't see you, God. Where are you?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I see like that. It's the lost aspect of she can't find her way back to Narnia.
Yeah.
Now, whether she's willing to admit that or not, I don't know. I mean, again, there's speculation.
Well, he doesn't spend too much time.
Yeah.
It's quite literally, I think it's a couple sentences to explain why she's not there.
Basically, it's explaining why Susan's not in the last battle. But yeah. So different questions that I came. So obviously we already talked about hardened hearts. The witch turns people to stone.
Very on the nose.
They're very hard. You can take that whatever way you want.
I can't believe you just said that. This is a family podcast, Brandon.
Family podcast.
No,
your mind went there.
Shoot. Isekai me out of here with that bus now.
So, again, symbolizing more of the spirituality aspect. Sure. The heart and heart, they're held captive. Yeah. So the people that are turned to stone, they're held captive, not just within stone, but also within like the queen's lair.
Yeah, her castle.
Or not queen, the witch's lair. And then Aslan frees by bringing spring, roaring, giving that breath of life,
which is such an interesting little.
It's a side, you know. Yeah. It's all that kind of stuff. It's really interesting, fascinating.
Especially if you have that theological knowledge. Yeah, it's really fun to look at these books from that perspective because you see it.
So something I want to touch on right before we end, because we're getting real close.
Yikes.
Is why do no adults go into Narnia? I want you to answer that. I have an answer on my
thing. Yikes.
Because who goes in? Well, the children do. You don't see the professor going. You don't see anybody else.
Well, the professor did go in as a kid.
Well, but yeah, again, as a kid.
My mind would immediately jump back to what I said earlier, that kind of faith like a child sort of thing. They're the ones who could still see that magic side of it. Yeah. Who would have the curiosity to dive into that. So that's kind of where my mind goes, at least, again, from a theological perspective, is that, it's the faith like a child. Mm-hmm. Have faith like a child. I'm assuming that's you're nodding, so I'm assuming that's where your mind went to.
So kids' curiosity, imagination, allows them to enter, which is akin, at least to me, spiritual openness.
Yeah.
And as a child's naturally more curious.
Yeah.
And says things as they are, or as they see it.
I don't say things as they are, but if somebody tells me not to touch the oven, I'm still going to touch it to see if it's hot.
Or that, yeah.
I am still curious like a child.
Well, in like even for Lucy, for example, in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, she's like, "Oh look, I saw Narnia. This is everything else." Everybody else is, okay.
And again, they're older than her too.
They're older, but they're still kids.
They're still kids, but they're looking at her as, she's the kind of goofy younger sibling. She's playing make believe.
And Edmund's the one that was. Again, it's that curiosity that brings...
Which is interesting again, because he's the next youngest. Or the next... He's the third youngest. Or oldest, or whatever, however you want to phrase it.
And a lot of and how they even got into the wardrobe to begin with, is hide and seek.
Yeah.
Typical, game of hide and seek.
Yeah.
It's something that's natural to a lot of kids.
Well, yeah, I mean, they were playing it on a rainy day. Who doesn't play hide and seek on a rainy day? Who hasn't done that at one point?
So I think that's another hidden aspect of different things of, what's in this room? The door that, don't go in this room, or, all this kind of thing. And it's covered by, again, a drape.
Yeah.
Well, what's under the drape?
Well, let's see.
Yeah, it's more that curiosity, different things like that. And obviously it brings back to childlike faith. You hear that in the scripture. Children of God. Faith like a child, because as a child you're more inclined to believe.
Well, yeah, I mean, even think about things that, Santa Claus. I mean,
sorry for those who believe.
Brandon, are you a believer?
You wasted it to all of our children watching.
Yikes.
No,
regardless,
he's a cuss. It's okay.
It's still there, we promise.
He actually goes in between books now, if you believe.
Gotcha.
Those books, real world, other worlds. He's all over the place.
Father Christmas might end up in Brandon's book one day.
Oh, whoa.
You never know. He might end up in my book.
I don't know if he wants to show up in my book.
Reindeer Mafia again? No, but I mean...
Those aren't reindeer anymore. What are those?
Keep the change, you filthy animal. But, no, I mean, think about it. That's kind of where my mind jumps, at least, with... as a little kid, I definitely believed in Santa Claus for a while. Until my parents said, "Hey, buddy, time to wake up." And, then they kind of, were like, "Hey, we need you to understand, this is fictional, but
here's the real reason."
Exactly.
Yeah.
But again, that's where my mind jumps with kind of that, oh, kids are willing.
And I think like some of that, and especially their journey throughout the books, especially ending with the last battle, kind of it's that journey and having that faith to what ends up happening at the end, which
spoiler alert.
We can get into that next week. I don't know. Do you want to get into next week?
Let's do that, because I think there's a lot. We have a lot more to talk about regarding this.
We're not going to give spoilers yet. You'll have to wait.
I never said spoiler warning. Just pretend I didn't say it. It's erased from your memory.
Boom.
Thanos snap it away.
Isekai away. So that, I think what we'll do is we'll go into the last battle next.
For sure.
Which that'll probably be the end of our Chronicles of Narnia talks, which obviously we can get more into depth at a later time if y'all are interested.
Let us know. I love talking about Narnia, so.
And then what we'll do after that is we'll go into Lord of the Rings and some of the different things within them. It's going to be kind of flipped, as in he's watched the movies, I've read the books.
I've read The Hobbit, so I have a baseline.
We'll probably mention a couple. I was not a big fan of the movie The Hobbit.
That is complete. That is a valid point. The movie Hobbit isn't.
They did it just to make money.
Yeah.
There's things that are in there that I'm like, what is that?
Legolas, what you doing there, pal?
Ariel, who the heck is that?
A love triangle? Ah, shucks.
Between a dwarf and an elf? Come on. I thought they didn't like each other. Anyway.
But yeah, I mean.
And then I think what we're going to do is we're going to go into our own stories and kind of have a Q&A.
Which would be a lot of fun.
Dive into some of the things behind it and why we wrote some of the things.
Sure.
And some of them get pretty deep, or at least for me, they get deep into some of the things that I've dealt with in the past. So
it's going to be
it takes that tone, definitely.
It'll be a really interesting conversation, I think, for both of us.
And I would love to publish my book at some point.
Who wouldn't?
I've been working on it since 5th grade.
Yeah.
So. And I'm not exactly a spring chicken no more. I'm not young. I'm not old by any standards, but I'm definitely a lot older than I was
in 5th grade.
In 5th grade, yeah. Let's just say my first attempt in 5th grade, like almost everything of it is gone.
That's fair. I mean, because I've been writing. You know, I'm only a couple years younger than you. But. Been writing for as long as I can remember. My story is much different in the sense that I started this story back in 2019, so it's still been a hot minute.
That's pretty recent, though.
Yeah, but it's not the first story I've written or the first idea I've had. It's the first idea that has really struck a chord with me.
Has substantial.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a very fun conversation.
Yeah, because I've written stuff in the past. Like I have one of my poems actually published in like the library of whatever.
That's awesome.
Is it good? I look back at it now and go, yeah, it's not great. I've written better ones.
But you know,
and we can talk about that at another time of just different things that we've written.
Yeah,
and we can share some of those because some of mine are also faith related. That's a good majority of mine, to be honest.
Well, I think that'll be an interesting conversation, even just in regards to our story, is how has our faith influenced our own writing? Because I know for me, it definitely has, and I'm assuming for you,
mine comes. Yeah, we'll get to it.
We'll
later.
Get into it.
Yeah,
we're running out of time though.
Yeah. So I think that'll be it for this video. So leave a like, share the video with people you think would be interested.
Yeah, friends, families. Family, enemies,
frenemies.
I think just straight up enemies. Share it with your enemies, even.
Yeah,
more the merrier. Thanks guys for tuning in.
Don't tell them to get isekai'd.
Yeah, we saw how that worked out.
We still want to do a video of the. We have to have an intro on that somehow.
I think just hit me with your car. We'll see what happens. See you next week, guys.
And on that note, catch you later.